We think it has to do with using God's name in curse words, but that's the least of it. Taking the Lord's name in vain is way more common than you might think. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Saturday, July 12th, 2025. The third commandment is shorter than the first and second commandments, though, as I have suggested, several of the commandments have commentary attached to them, either to explain why the particular commandment is important or to detail consequences of breaking the commandment. The third commandment falls into this latter category. Short commandment with a warning attached to it. It says, "You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name." Well, we've all done it, and we probably do it a lot more than we think we do, taking the Lord's name in vain, that is. We get the gist of it, but what does it really mean? As with many questions of meaning, it's important to start with first things. And the first thing here is to notice that it concerns the name of God, or in Hebrew, Yahweh. At its most fundamental level, this is a command not to misuse the holy name in any way. The concern in ancient Israel, which continues to this day, by the way, is so great that Jews do not even utter the name Yahweh, using instead a more generic term for God, such as Adonai, lest they inadvertently break the commandment. So far, so good, but this fact doesn't tell us everything we need to know. In Christian practice, it's not about God's actual name, but about any use of the words Lord or God that trivializes or demeans the holiness and majesty of God. There has been some debate over the centuries about whether using the name God when swearing oaths, and some Christian sects to this day do not use the phrase, "So help me God," when swearing oaths, either in court or when being sworn in as public officials. But in general, the idea of using the name of God in the process of taking serious oaths has not been seriously challenged. So where does that leave us? This is where things get a little murky, and it becomes difficult to draw any bright lines that apply to each and every case. This is where wisdom comes in. The best John Calvin could come up with, for example, was, "I have no better rule than for us to control our oaths, then they may not be rash, indiscriminate, wanton, or trifling, but that they serve a just need, either to vindicate the Lord's glory or to further a brother's edification. Such is the purpose of this commandment of the law." Not, shall we say, the clearest advice. And most of his discussion of this commandment has to do specifically with oath-taking. But Calvin uses one word in particular that is quite helpful here. He cautions against any trifling use of God's name. Now that's something we can wrap our heads around. But instead of trying to write a rule, something that applies to every instance, it's better simply to use some concrete examples. If you are someone who uses text messaging or social media, you've undoubtedly seen people use the letters OMG in place of "Oh my God." I would say the vast majority of the time when we use God's name like that, it is over trivial, trifling things. "Oh my God, that was a great burger." On the other hand, the cry, "Oh my God," when we see a terrible tragedy, is not so trivial. We're actually calling out to God for help. Another example. People often invoke God's name for commercial or partisan political purposes. These are the ones that really burn me up. Talk about trivializing God's name. And yet, people seem to resonate with it. It's one thing to have theologically based principles that underlie our politics and to have faith-based ethics guiding our business decisions. But to use God's name to win votes or gain customers, I can think of no more clear examples of using the Lord's name in vain. Look, God is holy. Invoking God for trivial things brings God down. Using God's name to secure an advantage for us, whether a competitive advantage in business or a political advantage, is to trivialize God's holy name and to trifle with God. No wonder this commandment made it into the 10 Commandments. Tomorrow, keeping Sabbath. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.